All right, so this is Bob Walsh from the Connecticut Institute of Finance. We're here again with, as far as I'm concerned, a very, very special person. All right, I've known you now, what, 14 years?
At least.
Right?
Yeah.
We were part of a group together for a little while.
Yep,
all right, you actually
group.
became a client. Okay, and Jeff has probably sold more homes for my clients than anybody else that I've ever had a conversation with. Not only has he sold homes for my clients, but he actually got me into this place, which
Yep.
is our business. You got my son into his place. Mike Gudadero, who's one of my associates, you got him into his house.
Correct.
And you also got Andrew into his house, who's another associate. So Jeff sells a lot of houses, okay? He's also probably one of the most ethical and kindest people I've met in the business in a long, long time. He truly cares for his clients, and he does the right thing. So Jeff, how long have you been selling now real estate?
So I started in 2009,
Okay.
and I don't know if anybody,
Oh, that's a tough time to start.
yeah, and I don't know if anybody gets into real estate like choosing it as a career early on. Maybe some of these kids these days watching Selling Sunset, say, oh, that looks great, but it's not like that. So like a lot of people, I got into it from transitioning from an old job. I got laid off in 2009, like a whole bunch of other people. And at the time, I knew somebody that was in real estate, and they're like, when you're in the transition, why don't you give this a shot? Mm-hmm. Why not? Look for a job,
Sure.
try real estate. And again, the rest is history. I had a super tough time, but I would not want to start in any other market than that.
Okay. Why?
Because it taught me how to work.
Okay. That makes sense.
Nothing was handed to you. You worked as much as you possibly could to get a little piece.
Pearls are created from friction. They
Yeah.
don't just appear.
And it really has carried over through my career. And I at the time, I was like, this is terrible. But now I'm like, that was the absolute best time for me to start.
Having dealt with real estate, and I'm involved in a little bit of real estate myself personally, not selling it obviously, but as an owner and person who rents. I think there's never a time in real estate when it's balanced, where you have same amount of buyers, same amount of sellers. Either always you have tons of buyers where if you can find anybody who wants to sell a house, you have a sale. Or you have a ton of sellers, okay, and there are no buyers. And if you find a buyer, you have a sale. It's never that balance between the two.
Yeah, but like anything, supply and demand.
Right.
And that is the way the economy works.
Right.
And so we'll always deal with that. When there's a little bit of supply, huge demand. Or demand can also be created by low interest rates.
Sure.
And so
Or-
there's a lot of ways to create demand.
Or a pandemic, where people want to move out of apartments and into their own home and have the white picket fence.
Correct.
Right.
And it's funny because, so we'll talk briefly about the pandemic, which is a big part of today's market. But when the pandemic hit, I personally said, like on that day when they said no one can leave your house, right? I was like, wow, I'm dead. Like my business is gone.
Right.
Nobody's going to want to go out and see houses. No one's going to want, no one can leave their houses.
Sure.
All this stuff. I was like, this is the worst. And it turned out to be the best years of my career.
Right.
So, again, perception of some of these things.
Sure.
I wish I could have predicted what was going to happen because I would have done
What would
a lot more things
Right. What would you pay for tomorrow's newspaper today?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah, you never know.
I couldn't even have predicted it.
Well, it's interesting because I have a lot of, and we talk here, and that's why you get so many referrals from me about real estate all the time. I feel that owning real estate, owning your own home, is probably the greatest investment and the best way to secure your future over the long term.
100%.
Okay. So in that, I basically talk to my clients if they're single or they're just getting married and they don't own a home, to basically we should plan for that and get you into a house. Right. The issue I find people, and you could probably attest to this much more right now, is the supply of beginning homes, starter homes, is relatively
Non-existent?
low. Non-existent.
Non-existent.
Where honestly, the McMansions,
Yep.
right, you can find those.
That market is steady. It always has been.
Right.
It never really changes.
Right. Well, I don't mean I'm talking about the houses that go between, 700 right now and $1 million. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the $4 million home. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so I'm talking about that house people step up to
Yeah.
after they get the starter house.
Well, unfortunately now, those are the starter homes.
Okay. Well, yeah, because the starter homes have gone up that high, right?
That's the problem. So the market anywhere between 3 and 500 is like decimated.
Right.
And even towns like Bridgeport and stuff, you can't really touch a nice house for under 4. So that transition is tough.
Right.
For people to now buy a starter home in the 5s and 6s, potentially even creep into a 7, and that's pretty tough to look at and say, oh, this is the starter homes now. And so yeah, when people transition over into the 8 and above, again, I feel it's an easier market because those are definitely not the starter homes, and
Right.
those
It's
people
the second
are
home.
more established.
But the issue with that is, I kind of find, and this is my own, I've not done any analysis on this
Yeah, yeah.
Or anything else, but what I find, which is kind of interesting, the generation that basically lived through the Great Recession, okay, many of them who are now probably 36 to 46 didn't buy homes. I think a higher percentage of them didn't. Okay, and they are now coming into the market and also looking for homes at this time. And the reason why they didn't buy homes, it was scary. They saw a lot of people losing their homes. The banks were failing. The whole back then the liar loan nonsense and all the other stuff that was going on. And so they just rented because it was easy and they did it. But now they're coming into the market. Plus your 26 to 36-year-olds are coming into the market. So you got
Correct.
two groups.
Yep.
The other problem that I see is the ones who did buy homes then, those starter homes, okay? Well, now they're doing well. They're 45 years old. They have that, 2.5 kids. They have another one on the way. They want something a little bigger. And so they want to buy that $900,000 house, right? With a little bit of acreage, maybe in a town like Easton or Reading or something like that. So they're looking for those houses. But, they bought their house for $250,000, $300,000. They've been in it for 70 years. They owe maybe, let's call it $275,000, $260,000 on the house.
Sure.
They can sell their house for $500,000.
Correct.
Right? That's great.
Easy.
Right? But now they're going to go buy but their mortgage is at 2 3/4, 3%.
Yes, that's
Right?
That's the trick.
So what they're doing is they're like, well, now I'm going to get my new house, and my mortgage doesn't double; it almost quadruples.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they're like, that's a lot of money, right? So I find a lot of them are not even moving out of the house. They may get a second mortgage and add to it. They build a dormer. They add an extension. If it's a ranch, they build a second floor. And we've gone through this before. Go to Trumbull and look at all the Leonard houses that were built back in the day, and none of the side pieces match the middle piece, and the second floor doesn't match the first floor, right? And the reason for that is people went through the same thing and did it. This passes. It ultimately will work itself out. But it's a very difficult time for people who want to buy those houses.
Well, it's part of all of what you said. A lot of it is very relevant to what's going on, where those people who have their 3% mortgages, 2.75% mortgages, hey, I'm one of them. They do not want to leave and now pay 6.5% to 7% mortgages, or they truly can't afford that on the house that they now want to buy.
Right.
Because their buying power, the purchasing power is diminished and cut in half based on that. So we're at the standstill of these people not wanting to sell and people needing to buy. People always need to buy.
Right.
They might not always want to buy, but people need to buy. And there's enough need out there that's keeping our inventory decimated. If a house comes on, it goes off.
Right.
That's unhealthy. We currently have maybe 2 months supply, and a healthy market is 6 months.
Right.
So we're way lopsided, and there's no straight answer on what would bring inventory back. Because if you lower interest rates to entice the people to sell, it's also going to entice a whole nother crowd of buyers to come in. So you're still going to be overloaded with buyers and not enough homes to sell, no matter what. So I feel like for the next 5 years or so, we're going to be
probably 5-6 years.
fighting
Absolutely.
this little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, until we can
get to some type, because I remember, I bought my house, we were talking about this before we started this conversation, back in 2007. And there was bidding wars everywhere you went.
Yep.
I mean, that's what you did. And I bought the larger house. You know what I mean? I was going from, I didn't need a starter house because I was established by then, and I was buying a larger house, right? It was a nightmare. You know what I mean? We were looking forever and trying to find a place was really tough. We paid over asking dramatically to get into the house because we just needed to get into a place. You know what I mean? And it was difficult. You know what I mean, to do it. It always seems to be that flow. But again, like you said, but back then everybody was building McMansions. Nobody's building starter house. That's another thing. We haven't increased the inventory of those starter homes.
No one's
Not up here.
No one's building starter homes anymore because, one, they don't see the money in it.
Right.
Like, they're automatically going to the $800,000.
Because your margins are higher.
Yeah. So they're taking these. I literally, and I'll give you an example. I sold a house in Fairfield, Little Cape. Totally needed complete updating.
Right.
I'm talking 2-bedroom Cape.
Right. Okay.
Sold for almost 6.5, and they now put a brand new house on it that's selling for 1.8 million.
Yeah.
In this spot.
Right. Oh, again, location. The real estate's always location.
Yeah. But that's what people are looking to do. And literally, this is a postage stamp of a property.
And that doesn't help the guy who just got married, 27 years old, has one kid on the way, was in an apartment, and he's making $150. He can't pay for that.
Yeah. Now, if they redid that Cape into something that was maybe 700,000, still making a profit.
Sure.
I mean, not 7, but maybe 8 or something. Still making a profit, but making it something that somebody could actually
afford. A regular person could actually afford.
A regular person could afford.
Yeah.
But the money's not there.
So one of the things in working with you that I've always admired, and you have a program, and your shirt says it right on there, Homes for Heroes. Could you go over that and what you do? Because I found in my practice, for example, I have a lot of cops, I have a lot of firemen, okay? Nurses too, but a lot of firemen, a lot of cops actually.
Yeah.
So I always found it interesting what you did, and something that I think that you bring to the table that a lot of other people do. Could you explain kind of what you do?
Sure. Well, first I'll state the reason why I got into it. Somebody brought it to my attention early on, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting program. But when somebody's bringing something to the table saying, oh yeah, you give money back out of your commission, most people are going to be like, why the heck am I going to do that?
Right.
So you have to have your why, right? So my why was that my dad was NYPD. He had passed. I'm like, okay, I have total respect for police and everything. Sure. And this was right after 9/11.
Okay.
That's when this was created to help all of the first responders, give them some kind of thank you and a way to give back. So it's police, so any kind of law enforcement, firefighters, healthcare workers, teachers, and military. Okay. So active, veteran, anything. So all of those categories, and I can expand, willingly to what I want. But it was ready to say thank you to them. And so they tried to get, again, realtors to give back to this community. And so I was approached with that. I'm like, okay, I could, I had the respect for it already and knew. And so I was like, I'll go for it. And it's been so awesome to not only give back, but when you do that, when you pay forward, you get the return, right? It's not everybody understands it, but it does work.
Absolutely.
So on my purchase, so if I represent a police officer, let's just say, on a purchase or a sale of the home, they will get what averages about to be about 25% of my commission back to them after closing. Okay. And an easy breakdown of math is it'll be about $700 per 100,000 that they either spend or buy, and it will go on both sides.
$500,000 house, $3,500.
Yeah, and it'll go on both sides. So then if they buy $1 million house,
right,
the money starts adding up. Right. And again, yes, it comes out of my pocket, but then I think that goodwill and those gestures again spread in that community, which is usually pretty tight knit. You know what I mean? Officers and firefighters.
Absolutely.
And they're like little families. And so when you get into those families, it comes back. And so it not only is an awesome feeling giving back, but it's great just to see, again, these people get into the home. So there's so many good feelings going on about it. And honestly, I just looked at my number, and I'm upwards of, I've given back just over $176,000.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Since I've been doing it. And I got a closing next week, and that'll bring it over the 180, which is crazy when I look at it,
Right.
you know, and again, like, wow, I gave away all that money.
I mean, I kid around
But-
about it, but I truly believe it. When I do pass away someday, on my tombstone, I would want to say, "Here lies Robert Walsh. What goes around comes around."
Yeah.
All right. Because I think it would be two things. I truly believe that. All right. What goes around comes around.
Sure.
And secondly, when people walk past me in the cemetery, they'll look at that as like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it could be either. Right.
could be either one.
But I think that's kind of fun, right? Maybe get my last laugh that way. So I truly appreciate doing that, and I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea because those people who do serve the community, and you know, I truly believe they don't do it like for the money. They do it because they have a calling to do it, and it's good if we can give back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think it's important.
And again, that shift after 9/11, you know, there was a lot of respect that was put on those fields in that day. And even today, I feel like some of that respect has diminished a little bit. So I am one that is 100% supporting of all of them. And I really think that they deserve the
Right.
notoriety, I think, for what they
You know,
do.
it's a little,
you know?
socially, and again, just as an observation.
Sure.
I find like nurses, for example,
Yep.
they were, we were doing the clapping thing during the pandemic, right? And now they're being ignored again. They're never though the bad guy.
No,
right?
no.
Firemen
Yeah.
are always the good guy. Okay, everybody
cat
loves
from a
firemen.
tree.
Yeah, no matter what, I don't care what decade you pick, firemen are cool.
They are
Cops,
cool.
it does this,
Yeah.
right? You go back to the '60s when we first had issues, right? Things weren't good, right? Then it got a little better, right? And then you had like when Dinkins was mayor, it kind of got worse again, and then of New York, originally New York,
my dad was
and then
New
it
York,
got better again, and then it got worse again, and then 9/11 happened, and you had to clap every time, and it's always that wave, right?
It is. But their job never changes. What they
Right.
risk never changes. People don't see that, and there's huge risk. The families, the stress. I remember my dad used to work nights. I'm like, oh, is he coming home tonight?
Right.
I don't know.
I think that
You know?
a police officer is a close friend of mine.
Yeah.
He was a captain in Bridgeport. He always used to tell me that being a cop is on any shift is 8 hours on average and 55 minutes of sheer boredom, followed by 5 minutes of sheer terror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, you
it's
don't
tough.
want. Yeah, you
know
don't
what I mean?
want it.
It's not because we forget that they're human beings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they come up to a car. They pull you over a ticket. They don't know who's inside. They don't know what you. And it's split-second decisions. And
Yeah.
I make a mistake. Do somebody taxes. Hold on a second. I erase it.
Fix it.
I fix the number.
Yeah.
That type of position. Bad things can happen. Right.
But even teachers, I think they don't get the respect either. It's like, but what they have to deal with, especially these days with the kids and the parents and stuff, and like trying to educate these things, because that's the future, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
they need even more respect that I don't think they get any.
No, not at
but
all.
they are shaping the lives of people that are going to be taken over, everywhere.
Yep.
So that's another huge one that I love giving back to, and I love putting the focus on is the teaching community.
It's really good service that you do and helping people get into their home because it's the biggest investment they're going to make.
True.
So if somebody wants to talk to you about buying a house or selling their house, how would they reach out to you?
Really just calling me.
Just call. So your phone number is?
Yeah, my phone number is 203-209-9037. And obviously if you just look up my name, tons of information, all good, of course, comes up online. My website is jeffgrossart.realestate.com. So it's very simple to find me. You won't have any trouble, and you'll see my beautiful caricature.
Yeah, we'll have that on the bottom of the screen if
myself.
anybody wants to contact you.
Yeah. But the thing about when people approach me, and I know that one of your questions was going to be about buyers and how I approach people that come to me.
Sure.
And I think that changes in every market.
Right.
Like in this market, when someone approaches me about buying a home or selling a home, I really have to explain this current market that we're in, because I think there's a lot of frustration that happens more so with buyers than sellers these days. But I think giving them that honest picture of the market before starting anything
Sure.
is key. To just let
Well,
them know, hey,
you have to kind of manage their expectations.
correct. And a lot of people don't like to do that, right? Sales is, you're going to puff it up. This is going to be great.
Right.
We're going to find you a home. This is going to be awesome. I'm so looking forward to it.
But
That's
you're
all great.
You're setting people up to be disappointed.
Well, depends on the market, right?
Right.
But in this market, I'm like, listen, guys, it's going to be tough.
Right.
It's going to be awesome in the end, but this is going to be an experience. You're going to potentially lose a lot of homes and be very frustrated and everything. That's going to happen. But you,
Well, I
will,
think
but you will get one eventually, and some people might not approach sales that way or
Right.
business that way, but I feel it's necessary. And
But, it's funny you say that because sometimes sales is like a dirty word, right? And to me, it's not. I mean, I'm not talking about the used car salesman. That that's a different story. But
Yeah.
but when people actually, I think, really dedicate themselves to the sales process, what you're really doing is figuring out somebody's need, okay, and helping them fulfill that.
Correct.
Okay, it's not shoving something down their throat. That's not sales,
Yeah.
right? It's by figuring out and educating them so they can make the decision on actually what's best for them. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun, right? Most of us, as Mark Twain once said, he was shocked on how bright his father got between his 18th and 25th birthday.
Okay.
All right, because when we're 15, 16, we think our parents are idiots, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things my dad said to me, which always stuck with me, he said, "You want to buy the cheapest car that runs, and the most expensive house you can afford."
Okay.
Key word there being afford.
Afford.
You don't want to buy something, now we go back to the 2000s early, right, where people were buying stuff they couldn't afford, right, either. And one of the things I respect about you is you really educate people about homes and you don't put them into anything that they're going to get in trouble with.
Yeah. Well, why would I do that in a sense where now my name is going to be mud in a sense when they're talking to their friends
Right.
and their family and all these people? I want it to be always positive.
Right.
So that's why I always tell them, like, even afterwards, like, come to me if you have a
Sure.
problem, if you have anything, come to me first, with any kind of frustrations or anything, because I want that experience to be
Well, I know we
the
both
most amazing thing
right,
of all.
because I know we both put ourselves out there as like we're the guys who know somebody.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
is a
so-
good position. I know, like, you love it, and I totally understand it. And I want to be that in the real estate world. You know what I
Right.
mean? If you need a contractor or something in your
Right,
home,
we do
like,
the same thing.
come to me, know? And so, again, I want it to be an amazing experience. If I put them in a house they can't afford, that's a one transaction and that's done.
Right.
That's a terrible business
Yep.
model and not one that would help me last another 15 years in
Right,
the business,
in
which
the actual
I
business.
hope to, do, even longer. So,
So as far as right now, what I find is, I always tell people that, human beings can't measure absolute value, right? And we tend to measure stuff by what we experienced last,
okay.
okay? We just do it as that's how we do things. Perfect example is, a first day in October where the temperature goes down to like 45 degrees, you put on a winter coat, okay? But in April, temperature gets to 45 degrees, you're out in shorts.
Yeah.
Right, because
Yeah.
now this feels warm compared to what we had in February,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Or it's supposed to be warm.
right,
Yeah, 'cause
and it's the way we're wired, right? But the same thing as people right now feel interest rates are relatively high, all right? Where honestly, historically, between 6.25 and 7.25 is kind of where the average is. I mean,
Sure.
we're higher on the range, but when I bought my first house, sorry to say that it was the last year of Jimmy Carter's administration, okay, or the first year of Ronald Reagan's, I think is when I actually closed, but it was 14.5% my mortgage.
Wow.
That was just as silly as the mortgage you have, the mortgage I had at 2 3/4.
Yeah.
We're probably never going to see those two again, right?
No.
Now, I do believe also that rates, if we went 10 years out, looking back 7, for that 7 years, the average probably will be between 5.25 and 6.25. I do believe rates are going to come down a little bit and average a little lower than the historical trend, just because that's a tendency when populations age, interest rates respectably compared, tend to come down a little bit. But, that's somebody's opinion. We all have noses. We all have opinions. But I always tell people, and they ask me, well, if you wait now for the price of houses to come down, you're going to get old really fast, and you're never going to see that because they don't really come down.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my example too. Personally, is when I bought my house in 2001, and I got the best interest rate out there, 5.99%. So not far off from today.
Right.
And at that time, that was the best of the best. And now here we are, almost 25 years later, and it's back to that.
Right.
Like so. They're always going to go cyclical, but that 3% was a result of something catastrophic.
It was a pandemic. It was,
and so we don't. It was unsustainable.
Right.
It can never last.
Right.
And it would take another
something
disaster to happen.
Absolutely.
So we don't want that to happen.
No. It's not a good.
So people need to forget those rates.
Right.
Will we see something in the fives, high fives at some point?
Sure.
Maybe.
Like
That's
I
realistic.
I think the rates in the future will be, if we went 50 years in the future and look back for the 50 years, I think the average in the future will be between 5.25. You take, different countries. You look at Dubai, right? Very, very wealthy country, very, very young population.
Okay.
Relatively interest rates are pretty high compared to other wealthy countries, right? You look at Japan, very old population, not that many young people. Interest rates are very, very low. Why? Old people love to lend money. If you have a lot of old people lending money, supply and demand, rates come down. You have a lot of young people want to borrow money, not too many old people, rates are going to be. We're in our country, we're an aging population. We're getting older. We're not terribly old, but we're getting older. It's just a natural demographic way things actually work.
So, in your second part of that, when you talked about home prices, so home prices are not going to go down. No. They're just not going to increase as much as they have over the past 5 years. That was
absolutely
again something that could unsustainable,
right?
And if it continued, would make homes basically unaffordable. It's tough, but they're still affordable. But the homes still will increase maybe 3 to 4% a year.
I always tell people
on average, that's normal.
Right.
To me.
I told people on average houses go up about 0.75% a year on average over any 10-year period of time. Okay. Now, it's never a straight line.
No.
It tends to go up, go flat, go up, go flat. That tends to what they do. And if you actually look at rents, right, it tracks it. So when house pricing are going up, rents tends to be kind of flat. When housing prices get flat, right, rents start to go up. Okay. When rents get to a certain height where people are like, I'm paying too much in rent and I should go buy my own house, housing prices go and they chase each other. You know what I mean? It's kind of how it works. Like you say, it's very cyclical.
Yeah, it has to.
Unless also, certain times things can pop for whatever reason.
And again, people are like, we don't want that to happen because the rest of the results of that catastrophe happening doesn't equal the little bit maybe that you're going to again save on a home. There's a lot more that happens, with these. I'm going to call them a catastrophe. I mean, the pandemic. It was brutal.
Yes. How do you find the rental market right now in real estate?
It's terrible. Well, terrible, and in fact, it's wonderful for landlords.
Okay.
Terrible for people trying to find rent that's affordable.
Right.
I mean, your average. 1 bedroom, you're talking, oh my God, depending on the town, 1,000, 1,500, your 2 bedroom, you're up in the 2,000s, easily. I mean, that's a lot,
Right.
And that's just the rent.
Yeah.
And then they got everything on top of it,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And I talk to these young people who are like 21 and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I want to get an apartment. I'm like, do you really? Well, let me just give you some numbers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Let's do the math.
Here's a little apartment over here. Here's this, and here's your phone bill and your cable and whatever else you want and all
car
your
payment
knickknacks
and your student loans.
Oh yeah, car payments, all that stuff, and they're like, oh my God, I can't afford it. And it's that again to me is not healthy.
No.
When people can't afford apartments and they're looking
and
things.
and it's also again looking back, we tend to what our experiences are, we look back and say, well, this is what it's always been. You know what I mean? And it's really not true.
Yeah.
And the example I always love to use, and you're old enough, sometimes I'm probably going to have to change my references sooner or later because now I'm making references to young people and they don't know what I'm talking about. Right? But you'll know what this is.
Yeah.
So back in the day when we had I Love Lucy.
Sure.
Now think about that show. Ricky Ricardo and I Love Lucy was the head band leader at the Copacabana, okay?
Yep.
And not until the very end of the show, when it was in color, did he actually own his own house in Jersey, all right? All before that, he lived in an apartment in New York.
Yep.
Because most people who lived in any type of urban area didn't own their houses. It wasn't the American dream up until like the early 50s. You know what I mean? That's when that started. Pre-1950, you were either rural and you lived on a farm, all right? Or you lived in a city, you lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
Unless you were super uber rich. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what the future is going to hold. That's why I encourage people, you know, we could be in a situation, maybe it's not very healthy, but that American dream of owning a house could become harder and harder over time.
It already has.
But even more so.
Even more so.
right? So if that's the case, okay, you know, if you have to stretch a little bit, and again, I always tell people when they ask me, when is it a good time to buy a house? I'm like, yesterday.
Well, I took a new couple out yesterday. So brand new couple, you know, they each live in an apartment. They want to get a place together, you know, but they're looking for like similar things in rents. I'm like, you can't compare the purchase and your mortgage to what you're paying in rent for multiple reasons. You're not getting anything back from your rent.
Right.
You don't get any tax write-offs from your rent.
And also, you're building equity in the house.
You have no equity. I was like, so it's not going to be equal. You're not, and you shouldn't look for it to be equal. It's always going to be more, but the benefits will outweigh the, you know.
Because ultimately what's going to happen, it just as the price of houses go up 3.5% a year, your rents go up 3.5% a year. So on that basis, in 20 odd years, your rent's going to double.
Yep.
Okay, where if you own a house in 20 years, now you paid off 70% of the value of the house, and the value of the house at least has doubled, and now you have a hell of a lot more equity. I mean, you can't eat that equity today, but it's going to help you in the future.
Yeah. So again, I always say, if you can afford it. So again, they'll come to me with this tight little budget.
Right.
Always in the beginning. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I'll be like, I'm not sure what we're going to find in that budget.
Right.
Or I can tell you now, you're not going to like what you see in that budget.
Sure.
So, but we're going to go see some houses.
Right.
I'm not the type of be like, I'm not going to show you that.
Right.
Be like, no, we're going to go see. You pick out some houses. We're going to go see them. I'm not going to make any comments. We're going to go see them. You know, again, which we did yesterday. So, you know, they picked out a few, and then I said, oh, let's look at these two. And of course, they liked the other ones that were more expensive and did not like these at all.
Right.
I'm like, but I need them to see that in person. You can't see it from pictures, and they need to walk through these things, and they're like, oh my God, it felt so small, and it was this, and I thought it was going to be bigger, and I'm like, well, that's what happens. That's why I always say we need to get into a home, you know, and I will never sell a home, and I never have without anybody seeing it or being in person.
Right.
There was a lot of that going on during the pandemic.
Right.
And to me, there's nothing equal. Like, you can't look at pictures and then get a feeling of how it is when you walk in, ceiling height and walls and all this stuff.
Because you can do a lot with photography and make stuff look a lot bigger and better than it actually is.
Yeah, and I've heard some disaster stories, and I just won't do it. The way I will get around, I'd be like, do you know anybody here? Do you have a best friend, family member, somebody who could come walk through and then give you their opinion?
Right.
You know, I don't want it to be mine, because I don't want you to think I'm trying to sell you on this thing.
Right.
Bring in some third party that I don't know, that you trust, to walk in with me. And that's the only way that I would even do that, because you can't judge feel and floors and all this stuff from pictures. Again, which pictures these days and the things that we can do to pictures and AI and all of these things that, you know, you and I could be AI right now, because we could have sent in some pictures. We could have sent in some pictures, and you created this conversation right now, and with the snap of a fingers we could change, you know, what we're wearing and stuff. But that's a scary thing.
Right.
Like, you cannot trust
what you see
online.
No.
Same thing with the house. Same thing with anything else we're seeing. And so,
you know, one of the most common things, and I always send them to you for this, is when I have somebody, because usually I'm one of the first people that finds out that somebody wants to buy a house or they want to sell the house.
Sure.
Because the first thing they ask me is, how much tax am I going to have to pay right, if I sell the house? When people sell the house, though, the first question I get when they sell the house, they're like, oh, and before I sell the house, I have to do this, 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 and this.
Yep.
And I always say, well, please wait. Could you go talk to Jeff? Okay? Because a lot of times putting money into something and selling a house is really not going to help them or help even the sale of the house.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
There's certain things that will help, okay? But there are other things that are not going to help,
Yep.
all right? So what are the things that you find right now that if you were going to fix something up, let's say the house is a little older, and that actually really helps in the sale of the house and could increase the value versus things that
Sure.
wouldn't?
So when I approach a seller, these same things, I'm like, let me come to your house. I need to see it. I need to walk around before we even talk numbers, before we talk selling, any of that stuff. I'm gonna come to your house. I'm gonna see where it sits on the street, in the house, all that stuff. How I feel when I walk in. What if I was bringing a buyer through, how I would
Presented.
look at it right now. And then after I do all that, I'd be like, oh, so tell me. And then I start talking to them. Hey, what were you thinking about doing all this stuff? But I try to tell people to keep things to like, all right, if we have wood floors and they're scratched or they don't look great, maybe we want to redo the floors, right? Because that's not changing anything.
Right.
That's just making it look a lot better, as opposed to, oh, I want to redo the kitchen. Well, what if your taste or whatever you choose there
Right.
is not the next person's taste? You could be doing yourself a
Spend
disservice.
$60,000 fixing a kitchen and then not impressed at all.
Correct. So like I'd be like, don't do that. But let's do the floors. And then if they have maybe some crazy color paint jobs, you'd be like,
Or wallpaper this
maybe
beautiful.
we do some like uniform paint. Let's paint that a gray, which everybody likes the gray, right? You know. So I'm like, I look at those changes. If somebody's got peeling paint or something that looks unkempt, right? You know, like I'd be like, I want the house, even if it's old and needs complete updating, if it's clean and looks well maintained, somebody knows that they cared about the
Right.
house, which means they probably cared about the mechanicals. They probably cared about all the service contracts and
Sure.
anything they have to keep up with. And that's what I want more than anything. So I want a clean house. So sometimes I'll have a cleaner come through, you know, maybe some fresh paint, do the floors, things that are curb appeal,
Sure.
inside and out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So let's make it look good, and people will then have a good feeling about it. But if you walk up to cracked steps,
Yeah.
it's your first entrance into the house. Oh my God, the railing's loose.
Right,
This
right, yeah.
comes off. The
And it's
doorknob.
little things.
Yeah, the doorknob is coming off in my hands. You're setting people up to start looking for those things.
But you may not want to spend $80,000 on putting all new windows in and doors.
Oh no,
Right?
never.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
even close.
Because you're not going to get that money back.
Yeah, and honestly, and the whole window thing is great. It's nice, ease. I got new windows,
Sure.
but old windows function a similar way.
Yeah.
You have an outside storm window, you have an inside window.
Yep.
They create the barrier.
Yep.
It's a very similar concept. Granted, they might not look as
And
pretty
new
and
people
stuff.
might want new windows, but it says back they may not want the windows you
yeah,
want.
Yeah, let them do it. You know, never that stuff. If the house needs a new roof, if the roof is totally shot,
Or they get it inspected, and the inspector says, hey, you need a new roof.
and the problem is going to be in that instance where people will be like, I don't know how much a roof costs. And does their agent know how much a roof
Right.
costs? Is he a new agent? He'd be like, oh, I don't know, maybe $30,000. Well, that might be way off.
Right.
So either you get quotes to replace the
Right.
roof, and you put the quotes there, even if you don't have the money to do it, or you get it done.
Right.
But never leave it up to either the buyer's
Right.
crazy imagination, because it's always going to be inflated, or somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Sure.
So different things like that, I will address. I've been doing it long enough to where I feel like I could point out all the things that I would point out to my buyer.
Right.
So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk through your house. I'm going to go to sell it, and I'm going to point out all the things that I would point out to my buyer.
All right, so appreciate you coming down.
Yeah.
All right. I will tell anybody, if you're interested in selling a house, if you're interested in buying a house, give us a call at our office. We're happy to sit with you, go over what the tax implications are that. We can also talk to you about how much house you can afford, what you're actually looking to do. I would definitely, if you want to call Jeff directly, feel free to do that. Buying a home is probably one of the best things you can do in a financial plan over time, okay? I truly, truly believe that. Selling a home is probably one of your biggest transactions you're ever going to do in your life, you know what I mean? And it's important that it goes smoothly. The aspect of buying a home and then selling a home simultaneously, because you're moving from one place to another place, can get a little funky.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be without a home to live in because you sold your place and now you're not in a new place. So you kind of have to work. That's why working with a professional like you can kind of make all those speed bumps tend to go away.
Yeah.
This is again Bobby Walsh with Jeff. Please, if you're looking to buy a house or you're looking to sell a house, I definitely recommend Jeff. He'll work really, really hard for you. And he's probably, again, one of the most fairest, ethical people that I've ever met in the business. So if you have any questions, you should feel free to give us a call. That's 203-371-4242. Give us a call. If you want to do something, you want to sell your house, you want to buy a house, give us a call. We're happy to help. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob.